horse dewormer.
Horse dewormer.
Taking horse medication that's used to deworm horses.
Toss back some horse dewormer.
That's a horse dewormer.
One of those drugs he mentioned, Ivermectin, is something more often used to deworm horses.
So we're going to compare molnupiravir with ivermectin. Now, I'm aware that this issue is sensitive, shall we say. So everything I say is going to be based on evidence, and I'm going to show you the evidence. And where the evidence is unclear, I'm going to be upfront about that and tell you about that. So ivermectin is the most studied repurposed drug according to this paper. Just quoting what the paper says. In randomized clinical trials, retrospective studies and meta-analyses, this paper is. So ivermectin is an FDA-approved WHO essential drug as a broad-spectrum antiparasitic and antibiotic, he's saying. And of course it won the Nobel Prize. The two discoverers won the Nobel Prize co-won the Nobel Prize in 2015, as ivermectin has revolutionised the human treatment of parasitic disease around the world. Direct quote from the paper, and which has demonstrated broad-spectrum antiviral activity against RNA viruses, including HIV, Zika, MERS, coronavirus. So that is the FDA-approved drug ivermectin inhibits the replication of SARS coronavirus 2 in vitro. Now, this means in experimental circumstances, and this again is not ambiguous. This goes way back to what paper was this? This goes way back to this paper here. One of the early papers from 2020 from Australia. The FDA-approved drug ivermectin inhibits replication of SARS coronavirus 2 in vitro. Not in vivo, this is looking at in vitro. So that is there, and I think this is pretty well, I think we can say that's pretty well accepted science now. No one seems to debate that particular point anymore. 5,000-fold inhibition of SARS coronavirus 2 got rid of 99.98% of viral particles in the first 48 hours. Remember, that is the ivermectin in vitro. Both molnupiravir and ivermectin are well absorbed orally, so you take them by mouth. This is the big example, the big selling point of the new molnupiravir. You don't need to give it via an intravenous infusion like you do the monoclonal antibodies. Tmax is the time it takes to get to maximum plasma concentrations. For molnupiravir, it takes about 1 to 2 hours to get to maximum concentration. With ivermectin, it takes a bit longer, 4 to 6 hours. You need to give 2 doses of molnupiravir a day because the half-life, the time taken to excrete half of the given dose of the drug from the plasma, is 7 hours. Whereas ivermectin, it's long. Now, this paper quotes 81 to 91 hours. Now, this is surprisingly long. I had thought it was around 17 hours, but I'm just quoting what this paper says. And being lipophilic has a large volume of distribution. In other words, it dissolves in fatty tissues, and of course the cell membranes of the body are fatty tissues, so it's able to diffuse into a very wide number of cells. Ivermectin has the ability to accumulate in the lungs, which of course is one of the main target organ for SARS coronavirus 2. So it's not just about the half-life with ivermectin, it seems to accumulate in the tissues in the lungs. And as far as we understand from my conversation with vets, it stays there for a long period of time. So it can have a long-acting effect locally in the lungs. So you could end up with higher concentrations in the lungs than other places, which of course, in terms of treating severe acute respiratory distress syndrome, is exactly where you want it. Now, what we are firm about is the cost. Now, so far, the molnupiravir is about $700 a course. So it's, I think, as far as I know, it's BD. That's twice a day for 5 days. So that would be a total of 10 capsules, and that would equal $70 per capsule. That's the price that the US government seems to have paid so far. What the eventual price will be, Merck has said the price will be different depending on what country can afford, which is good, of course. So that's kind of the price so far. We're looking at about $700 a course. Now, according to the World Health Organization, the cost of a packet of 100 ivermectin tablets is 3 milligram tablets is $2.96. So say we took 12 milligrams a day for 5 days, that will give a total cost of treatment of 53 cents, which is about 45 English pennies. Ivermectin, 3.7 billion doses have been given. 3.7 billion doses given to human beings. This is not counting animal data. That's 3.7 billion doses have been given to people. And the adverse events reported are 5,693. If we compare that with another common drug like amoxicillin, where there's been 136,000 reported adverse events, and another common drug like ibuprofen, which is the aspirin type anti-inflammatory, we call it brufen in this country, 165,000 adverse events reported. So from that we see that ivermectin's got a very low amount of adverse events reported compared to those couple of other common pharmaceuticals. But how well do they work? The efficacy. Well, we know that the molnupiravir is about 50% reduction in deaths and hospitalisations from yesterday. So we can say roughly molnupiravir preventing 50% of hospitalisations and deaths. Those studies being done in people that had at least one risk factor for hospitalisation or death being treated early. Ivermectin, so we're saying about 50% efficacy, preventing hospitalisation and death for the molnupiravir is kind of the figure that we're working on from yesterday's video, day before's video. Ivermectin, this paper here, this is the Tess Laurie paper. She's saying a 62% benefit from her meta-analysis with a moderate certainty evidence.
That's a